but that'll work. Well, hello there. This is Shane from Shane's Reviews, and I hope you are having a great day today. Today we're going to be talking about A Hole in the Sky. Which was wrote by Peter F. Hamilton and narrated by Elizabeth Cleet. I think there was a book last year that this individual had narrated, and I was like, blah! Because her voice didn't, in my opinion, work for that story. But I want to be fair, in this story, it works really well. I think that some of my gripes had to do with the different voices that they were trying to use, etc., and it just really wasn't working for me. But, to be fair, in this one, that was kind of skipped over. It was the same person's narration. She wasn't trying to change her voice for the different characters. And so in this book, Elizabeth did a great job, and the production team did a great job of recognizing this person's strengths and using those. So instead of it being something that was like taking away from or distracting, instead it came out to be a really good narration and a really good production. And so I was happy, because as soon as I heard her voice, I was like, oh no, I remember her. But I was surprised. She did an excellent job. So anyway, moving right on along. This is a first book in a series. And so imagine yourself that you are stuck out in the middle of nowhere, and every generation that you know has been on a floating, transport ship, for lack of a better word, that was expected to take 400 and 500 years to get to the next planet, because they're going to a different solar system altogether than your own. But come to find out, it's actually been near 1,000 years, and humanity already reached the first destination, but there happened to be some sort of life there, and now, any day now, you should be getting there. This takes the Are We There Yet game to a whole new level. Now, I don't want to detract, though. I don't want to take away, I don't want to make anybody think that this is going to be a horrible read, because it's absolutely not. And I know the way that I just described it might be a little bit, but from the check marks, let's see what we've got. We've got science fiction, we've got dystopia, we've got person versus person, we've got person versus nature, we've got humanity versus another threat. It's all based in space, and there's good storytelling as well that gets you from the front of the book to the end of the book, and of course it does leave off on a bit of a cliffhanger. But in the beginning of the book, we're introduced to humanity in its new way. And the new way of humanity is more like the old way of humanity. Everybody does their bit of work. Everybody does their little bit of work that they're supposed to do. Whenever it comes to this sludge type thing that comes out of these pipes, that gets trucked around on barges and then took to the farms so that everybody can fertilize what they're going to be eating with the things that the ship has processed. Now, they know they're on a ship, but there's some very specific rules that have to do with their everyday life now. There's this thing called cycling, which I guess is an abbreviation for recycling. And there is a thing called the electric captain, and the electric captain is a screen that pops up usually really close to a cycling day, just a reminder of things need to be done so that we can continue, because there's only X amount of resources that are in any given section of the ship, and it's up to the people that are living in this thing to indeed grow the food that they need and take care of things. So there's only so many humans that can support. So because there's only so many people that can be supported by the amount of area that they have, that they possess, whenever somebody gets to be a particular age, I think it was 60, 62, or 65, one of those three, then they take this little drink, and this little drink is supposed to be the most wonderful tasting thing there ever was. And it has this incredible blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's something to help them fall asleep and pass away so they can be put into the machinery and then they get recycled into the stuff that's shipped out on the boats from the pipe and go back into the ground and help grow the plants and help grow the people, etc. So that's kind of a horrifying idea on its own, but it's also, I could see where something like that would be needed. And there's even an advisory group that will figure out if you're injured, if you can continue to contribute to humanity's survival, or if you are a drain on survival. And if you're a drain, then you get cycled. So why am I telling you about this portion? Because it's important. Whenever it comes to that mentality, there are some people that just would not be down for it. They would just, no, we will not. And those people exist in this book. So kudos for the realism of the way that people would actually behave, because not everybody would just be happy to take that little shot of whatever that is and then be put into the ground after they get churned up with all the other excrement and everything else, right? So those people are called cheaters, and cheaters are actually kind of what gets this story kicked off. So that it becomes a cycling day, and this... I caught it that time. In fact, I'll be right back. So there's a shot of 160 milligrams of caffeine. That ought to do it for me. Fair enough. So the cheaters are the ones that actually get the story started. And the way that happens is it becomes a cycling day, and the main character that we follow out throughout the book, it's her time to be the flower girl. So the flower girl's responsibility on the day of the cycling is she will stand there and give a flower and give them a well wish on their way to lay down on this large trapdoor assembly that falls down and then comes back up. Simple enough, but she ends up meeting somebody. Simple enough, but she ends up meeting somebody that knows her grandmother that disappeared. But she doesn't know that this is her grandmother. This woman goes and says something prolific. She says, hey, suffering from headaches, are we? Is everybody starting to get a little cough? It's because we're running out of oxygen. There's a hole in the ship, and we're all going to die. And that's a paraphrase, but she also says, go find this person. So she, after the whole little flower ceremony and all that kind of a thing, she gets invited to blah blah, and they have this interesting dynamic of, like, this little section will invite the people from this little section to come over, and then they'll have a little dance or, you know, whatever, so that they can all intermingle. And I'm pretty sure the purpose behind that, although it wasn't mentioned, was to make sure the DNA pool stays diverse instead of everybody that's locked off in their own little area intermingling and then the DNA pool becoming the same, right? So that's the whole purpose, I'm thinking, of them having the different parts of the ship visit different parts of the ship, which makes a lot of sense, really. But she goes and she asks her dad about this. She's like, hey, have you ever heard this name? And he goes, yeah, that was my mom's name, and she disappeared. She was a cheater because she didn't want to get cycled. And then there's a thing that happens that gets the story to move along even further. While she's out on one of these little dancing things, because she was the flower girl, she of course was, you know, privileged in this next dance thing. Although, to be fair, the character herself, she wasn't so much into the whole pomp and circumstance. She was very relatable. Her concerns were more of the concerns of, you know, what I think a person would actually be feeling in her circumstance. And so that was good to see, because instead of it, hi, I am this person, look at me, I have this emblem, you may dance with me, I am incredible. Instead of all this kind of a thing, it was more of the experience. The book actually kind of centered around this individual's experience and what she was doing. And that's what kind of made it more interesting to me than what I was expecting. I was expecting there's people stranded on a ship. There's maybe some kind of hostile alien, and they have to somehow come ahead, right? We never get to that conclusion. And the reason why is they have a lot of misconceptions, and there's a lot of details, exposition, back-end thought processes. There's the introduction of her to the ship and to parts of the ship, and the ship had AIs, and different AIs do different things, and some of them are intelligent for conversation, some of them are not. And even the backstory of the mutineers that actually caused the problem to begin with, where they were stranded or thought they were stranded, or maybe they're here or maybe they're there, but they don't know it just yet. But they do find out just a tidbit of what's going on later on in this story. And this is actually one of those neat things, because her brother, he ends up getting injured. So he's out playing with his friends at this thing, at the dance, and falls out of a tree, lands on his back, and then he can't feel much of anything. He has limited use of his left hand and most use of his right hand, but from there down, he's like paralyzed, and that really sucks, because even though they're on this ship that has traveled from one solar system to another, and then moved on to yet another one, and another one, they're so primitive in everything else. It's neat to see, because there's the caffeine. It's neat to see because they come from a society where we were able to build a vast ship that could travel amongst stars, albeit not speed of light, faster than speed of light, although it is mentioned that they were going at X amount of speed of light, which, again, kudos. But that whole civilization is gone to them. They know nothing. They don't know how the ship works. They don't know how to interact with the ship. They don't know what the different robots on board would be, or even what a robot is. They even have gone as far as they make their own wheelbarrows, and they make their own wood, make their own wood. They grow their own trees, they have lumber mills, and etc. So they're kind of like in a pre-industrialized state, even though they're on side of a starship that's took them 2 solar systems away from Earth. Interesting conundrum they have there. Sounds to me like they need to get a hold of a particular interdimensional insurance agent that we know that has the highest customer service awards that could ever be given. That's right, Tom Stranger. Cue Alec Baldwin. Thank you, sir, for your service in those books. They're joyous. Now, as her brother gets injured, there's a lot of drama that starts to happen, and this is where the book's getting interesting. So I'm going to start to leave out a lot of detail at this point, because I don't really want to ruin the journey if you decide to go along on the journey that this book is inevitably probably going to become. So she makes the decision, after her dad's talking to her, after that board I mentioned had come and investigated her brother. Her brother, he's like, look, I've come up with a design. This is a boat. It's going to let me fish. I can fish. I can do stuff. Don't get rid of me, please. And it's all in vain, really, because everybody knows what's going to happen, because the poor kid is taking away from not only his ability to make food, but someone else's ability to make food, and that's not going to fly very well in the eyes of the council. Pardon me. So she decides to take off with her brother. She becomes a cheater. She takes her brother with her, and they find her grandmother. Very cool. That's where I'm going to stop on that, because then we get into, there are AIs, there is this, there is that, and then they start making the journey to what I'm guessing is the second book, because if this book isn't continued, and I haven't even looked it up, I just picked it up on sale and was like, woo, cool. But if this book doesn't continue, I will be very disappointed, because it was such a good read, and I find myself curious to find out what these characters are going to get to. Something else that I applaud is that instead of everybody being completely 100% safe, one of the characters in the book dies, and I was glad to see that the author's not afraid to take big chances. It wasn't a main character that I don't know if that was a main character or not, but it's not like they killed a main character, but there was a character that could have been important that disappeared for a reason, and that's a hard choice to make as a writer. It's hard to kill something off or kill someone off. So I'm glad to see that, because that makes me think that maybe this is going to be one of those very rare stories that actually develops the characters and develops their time that they have, and then makes good use of that time and our time enjoying it and ingesting it, and then getting the point of they've reached this. They have now, over the course of all the stories, got to the point where they have achieved their goal. I would love to see a story with a payoff like that, because it's been a minute since I've seen that. Really, it has. I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted. The peaking on my monitor is telling me I'm very much in focus, and that makes me happy. Yes. Now, beyond that, it was a good read. Is it worth your time, efforts, and energies? I think it is. I mean, if you're just minutely into sci-fi and you like space and you like things that are crafted, you're going to enjoy this story. I do believe you're not going to go wrong. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here pontificating on my little bitty stool, because I'm actually only 4'1". Not really. But I enjoyed it quite a bit, and that's why I wanted to share it. This is certainly not a Sunday afternoon, there's nothing else to do read. This is more of a give yourself a little bit of time. Have yourself a snack that you really enjoy when you start it, or a drink that you really enjoy. Sit by a fireplace and just take it in. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. Now, for the rest of it, these are the most interesting comments that we found this week. Thank you so very much for your time and putting those in there. If I get a chance this weekend, I'm going through all the comments and I'm going to reply. Yes. And for the question of the day, what would you do in that circumstance? Because, I mean, everything would be normalized, right? You would be born into that world. You would be in that situation, and that would be the only situation that you would know. You wouldn't know about the ancient life. You wouldn't know about what was actually there before, or the infrastructure, or the ability that we had as a society. But what if you found out? Would you say it's of the devil and black magic and let's just avoid it altogether? Or would you embrace it and just go with it? And then push it and see how far you can go. You know, I'm curious to see what you guys and gals have to say about that. Because I know what I would do. You know what? Here's what I would do. If by chance it comes out that I would be the one that would be able to open things up and get into stuff, yes, I would certainly just dive in there as far as I could. Wiggle my big butt in there. And not necessarily for the point of becoming the captain or anything like that, but just so that I could open it up for everybody else, so that everybody else could see what would be available or what can be available, or to reteach the generational knowledge that would be stored inside of that ship to everybody, to hopefully, with a strong moral compass that these people seem to have, and with that knowledge, to become more than what they are currently. So, yeah, that's what I would do. Anyway, I hope that you guys and gals have had a wonderful week. Be safe. Here in America, you're actually able to start getting your COVID vaccinations. Not a bad idea, just putting that out there. Seriously, we're still not out of the thick of the woods on that. Please make sure that you wash your hands, wear your mask, put your sanitizer on, because I know that people are tired of it, and I know that it sucks sequestering and not going out and doing things, but if I can manage to keep myself in nothing but my house or my office, with the exception of taking care of the customers that are healthcare that I take care of, you can do the same. It's hard, but once we get our immunity up, it won't be so bad, will it? Yep. So, anyway, love you guys and gals. Thank you so much. If you watch this far, you are certainly my hero. Oh, and speaking of which, not in this video, but hopefully, in a couple of videos forward, we got a new toy. Remember that stuff I was saying where we were gearing up to do something? This is the first step. And this weekend, I'm going to get the rest of the stuff together. And then it will be go time. Yes, I can't wait for that. That's going to be fun. And if I hear any more discontent from the editors about my choice, I'm going to start doing ASMR videos. That's right, Scraps. Just for you. That's the most horrible evil laugh, isn't it? That's not the way that I actually laugh, but anyway. You guys have a great weekend. Hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Do a little tap dance on the subscribe button. And if you want to annoy your family, send me through, share it, let them see the gloriousness that is I'm just teasing. But anyway, seriously, have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Shane's Books and Reviews.
This is not Shane. This is not endorsed by Shane's Reviews or any counterpart or company.
Oh, yes it is. This is what the channel's become.
Oh, God save us. God save us.
Lord save us.